Hello, hello, everyone.
Hi. Hey, Susan.
How you doing, Laura?
Oh, actually, I was freaked out. Everything just went haywire the minute it started.
I noticed that. I'm like, wait a minute, something's going on with her background.
I'm like, oh no, everything just shit the bed.
Never fails, right? Never fails. But yeah, it's the last show of the year for us.
Yes, it is, and I'm excited.
I'm very excited for this guest as well, and for the viewers, I'm actually going to do a little bit something special since it's the last episode of the year. I'm actually going to pull back my cloak so people could actually see my eyes, okay?
All right, there you go, guys.
I'm actually going to do this. Doo-doo, here we go. So now people can act. It's not like nobody sees my face because I'm about to roll out the investigation from the Oliver House. I still have to edit it.
Right.
So people are going to see my face. So
there you go. The mystery is
with my Viking makeup on,
So guys, she does have eyes. So
I do have eyes, yeah. Bluish, greenish, whatever temper I'm in, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
Of course, I'm sipping my drink right here.
There you go.
I am all set. I figured like a blackberry salsa cranberry juice drink. Just,
That's what you whipped up for this evening.
But I already been sipping on it. So
she's
anyways.
She's laid back and ready to roll. Who do we got in the house?
I am ready to know. Yeah. I'm just excited. I'm excited for this guest because we've been talking for a while back and forth. And, we connected because of my favorite place, favorite haunted location, which we discuss later. But we are bringing to this show Mark Veau. So not only was he a program director for radio broadcast stations, he is a screenwriter, filmmaker. He owned the Victorian, the S.K Pierce house in the year 2000. So we'll talk about that. So he's a jack of all trades, I would say. He wears many hats. So without further ado, let's bring him on.
All right, let's get it rolling.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, Lady Victoria and Laura. How are you?
We're good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on today. Appreciate it.
We're excited to have you on. So many questions.
I know. I have so many questions. So be prepared.
I'm prepared. I am prepared, Susan. No problem.
So if you wouldn't mind, Laura, I'm going to start.
Go ahead.
So what made you go into the direction that you're there today, Mark? I would say, what sparked your passion for filmmaking? Can you share a specific moment when you knew that this was the path that you need to be in?
I actually went on two paths. I went on the radio broadcasting path simultaneously with the filmmaking path. Mm-hmm. Radio, I knew I wanted to get into when I first heard Rush's 2112 album. And I looked into the band and how it all happened. And I discovered that there was a woman named Donna Halper, who was from Massachusetts, Quincy, actually. Who was, I think, the first female on the air in college radio in Massachusetts. I loved her story. She spun the first Rush record in Cleveland on a rock station out there. And I said, I really want to do that one day. I want to make a difference like that. And so I knew before I even got to where I went to college, Worcester State, when they still called it a college, now it's called a university, just like everything else, kind of watered that term down. But we were there, and I got into college radio, and that's when I met my best friend forever, Michael Savino. He ran the television station. I ran the college or the campus radio station, and we worked together on simulcasts, and we shared our passion together in an off-campus apartment for creating little films and things that we had to run on the TV station because we really didn't have any content for programming. So we had to make our own, and that turned into, of course, Attack of the Killer Refrigerator. And it just really took off from there. And now we're, all these years later, 40 years later, working on Attack of the Killer Refrigerator 2, which has a huge connection to the S.K Pierce Mansion. And we can talk about that because the screenplay was written in the mansion, literally. And we had blocked it all off. We were going to shoot it there. And then, things kind of took a turn where we had to sell the house. And it wasn't because of the hauntings. It was because of something else. But we did go back there and we shot a trailer a couple years ago. We got a big crew back out to the Victorian. And we shot the trailer in the place that we're going to use that house or that mansion as the movie world. The whole film takes place inside that mansion.
That's awesome.
And so we're thrilled with the way that the story has developed, and we're thrilled with the way that we've been welcomed with open arms. I got to thank Marianne Lewalma. Obviously, she has been out there forever. I first met Marianne when I moved into the house, which will be 25 years ago this upcoming May. Ken Watson, another friend of mine, God rest his soul, he's passed. He did a lot of work with the S.K Pierce Mansion, and I lived there from 2000 to 2008. We were the first ones to kind of bring out the haunted stuff, and it was actually a contractor friend of mine who alerted us to that there was some stuff going on inside that house, and that we needed to absolutely have it checked out. And we did. We had some mediums come in. They confirmed the servant, which is Maddie Cornwall. They confirmed the little boy, and they confirmed Ina Sare, who we all know perished in a fire in the house in the 1960s. So we uncovered all of this history, and that led to, the more aware you become, the more you see, so to speak. And if you could welcome this with an open mind, then it's amazing what you see and what you encounter.
Yeah. So what made you change from radio broadcasting to filming?
Well, again, I was doing the whole thing all simultaneously in 2018, and decided that it was time to move on and do some and concentrate really just 100% of my creativity into the films with my business partner, my best friend Mike Savino. So we're working on all of that and trying to and get that project pushed forward. Our website's mediahousefilms.com, MEDIA films, FILMS.com. We'd love to get the community involved. I mean, we are looking for, producers, executive producers, because our thing is to take a bit of Hollywood, like we've always done, or we've always attested and strive to do, and bring it right here to the Worcester County community, specifically Gardner, and that northern Worcester County community, mainly because of obviously the S.K Pierce Mansion. So you'll be seeing that, but we are looking for everybody to get involved with this, and there are investment opportunities. But again, you go to mediahousefilms.com, you can email us and see if we can get you involved in the film, because we're going to need about 200 teenage high school age kids to party in the mansion for pretty much the whole movie.
Wow. Maybe I can
bring
turn
it to life.
back time.
Yeah, no, really.
Right.
There's only one scene that takes place away from the mansion, and that would be in a high school like hallway. Other than that, everything takes place in the mansion. Now, we also know that we're not going to be able to shoot it all in the mansion, so we're going to have to the more devastating scenes, the more explosive scenes, and there's a lot of that will be shot on a sound stage yet to be determined. Maybe the studio's up at Fort Devens. We'll see.
How do you think the guests are going to react?
All the guests that are in the other realm?
Yep.
I'll tell you what, Susan, that is a great question. And we've taken this into consideration, preparing the shooting schedule and preparing what we're going to be able to do there. And one of the things that we decided on immediately was any footage that we shoot will leave that property that night in a safe if we have to. We have taken that into consideration. The investigations that happen there, as you know, batteries run out in a matter of minutes when they're fully charged. So that's another issue that we're going to go ahead and have to deal with there. We know it's there. Michael's been to the house 1,000 times. So, we know that these paranormal implications on the shooting schedule, we have to definitely take those into consideration.
Well, the good thing is that they know you, so
yeah, we
Right.
did. So when I did the tours back in November 2nd, which happened to be All Souls Day, which was a bit of an irony. There were some things that people had seen, and of course, you always uncover it when you go through and you review the footage, as you do all the time. So we thought we did some spirit box stuff, and one of the spirits, which was a female, said that she goes, "I remember you. I remember the voice." That's
oh, nice.
Maybe they can help us.
Yeah.
Maybe. What was your first personal experience in the house?
I'll tell you, the first personal experience in the house was when there's one I'm going to tell you. It's a friend of mine named Bill Wallace, and it's an amazing story with Bill. My first one was, okay, when the first psychics came in, or the first mediums came into the house, and they said, "You have 3 spirits here." And she mentioned the boy, or they mentioned the boy. They mentioned the man who died in the fire. They weren't getting a whole lot on them as far as more detail goes, but they had gotten a lot of detail on the servant girl, Maddie Cornwall. And they said, she's young. She's in her 20s. She's not from this country originally. She was brought here to be a nanny and a servant to the Pierce family. They believe that she was in love with Sylvester Pierce, but there was nothing that ever happened, that there was no affair. And her initials were either CM or MC. And if they fell in CM, her name was Cynthia Moore. They were getting a Cynthia Moore, but they did say that they were very certain that it could be an MC. And if it was MC, and that's the way the initials fell, they weren't getting a name. But again, 20s, servant, nanny, all that stuff from another country and everything. So I went to the Gardner Public Library, and I pulled up the census records on microfilm. You know how that is. I was there for 8 hours just looking for 4 West Broadway in Gardner. And I went to the 1880 census records, because that was 5 years after the house was built. So I thought, if anybody, well, first I couldn't go to the 1890 census records because those had all burned in a big fire. I don't even think they exist. I don't think any part of that exists. But 1880 did exist. And after 8 hours of searching on microfilm, I finally came across 4 West Broadway, and it listed, the long scroll, Victorian handwriting, Sylvester K. Pierce, headmaster, owner, his age, where he was from originally, where he was born. And as I went through his 26 servants that were listed, number 23, 22, somewhere around there, I ran across Maddie, Mattie Cornwall. She was, I think, 26, it said. I have a copy of it here somewhere. 26, nanny servant from Nova Scotia. That was my first, wow, that's way too detailed on what the paranormal mediums had said. I said to myself, how could, if they said the ghost of S.K Pierce was wandering the halls, well, anybody could say that, right? But this was so what would seem to be such an obscure character, so to speak, in the house of history in its glory in 1880. So that's when I believed. So when I went back to the house, excuse me, I went back to the house, I walked in, and I out loud said, "Maddie, I know you're here. You know that we're here, blah, blah." I said, "This is your," I didn't want to wake up in the morning and see red rum, written on the wall. Two twins holding hands at the end of the hallway asking me to come play with them. I wanted no part of that.
Right.
Maddie, I know you're here. You know we're here. This is your house. We're just making it pretty and beautiful again. We're not going to change anything. We're just going to bring it back to the way it was for you when you were here in this plane or in the physical state. And I was at peace with that, that was the first major, gotcha moment. Like, this is real. This is, there's no way that that they spent 8 hours to pull the wool over on me, looking through microfilm at an old census record from 1880.
Right.
That was the first thing that really happened. And once I became aware of that, the whole world opened up. I became really, really in tune what was going on around the house. Nowadays, with Marion there and, Rob and owning the house, every floor is covered with security cameras, very well placed. They're not obtrusive. They blend in with Victorian architecture. You've been there. And the stuff that Marion shows me, and even my wife, when my wife goes up, it's mind-boggling. The stuff that gets caught on security cameras there at 3:00 in the morning when nobody else is in the house is absolutely unbelievable. So for all I know, all of that could have been going on when I was there, but I don't think it did, because Edward and Lillian's story. They didn't have a real good time in the end.
No. And so if everybody doesn't know, before Mark actually bought the house, it was abandoned like for 30 years or so.
Yeah. We bought it from a gentleman by the name of Jay Stemmerman. Jay had, I forgot his connection. His, I think it was his aunt, maybe, if I'm right. I got it all written down, but to paraphrase, he had a connection to the Pierce family. And there were rumors that he won the house in a poker game with one of S.K Pierce's sons. And I'm not sure if that's exactly the way it all worked out. But he got the house, he bought the house, and he didn't spend much time there. He spent time there in the summers, but I believe he had a place in New York, and he also had another property somewhere else, perhaps Hallandale, Florida, I think is where that one was. So he didn't spend much time there. But what he did do there was he was a musical instrument dealer. There were hundreds of vintage musical instruments in that house at one point, but he was also an avid painter. And when I say avid painter, I'm talking sofa-sized paintings. And we had all the paintings from when he first started in the 30s all the way up to the present day when we were there. And as the years went on, his paintings and the subject matter of his paintings became more demonic. All right, so he might have a Mountie on a horse in 1945, and by the time he got to 1970, he's doing demonic faces with nude women on crucifixes, know. And I thought that was interesting because you could see it was almost like looking into his mind. I never met the man. In fact, I never met his daughter who sold the house to us. But we did the deal, and we moved in. And, again, it goes back to what Ken Watson said to me once. And again, God rest Ken's soul. He did so much work with history on that house. And we became really good friends. And he said to me, he goes, because the house is so beautiful now. The Contis have done such an amazing job.
The wallpaper is absolutely amazing.
It's period right to the you couldn't get more authentic, right? Of course, back then, Victorian wallpaper contained a lot of harmful
chemicals, yes.
Chemicals that killed people without them knowing it. But now you couldn't get more, period. They've done an amazing job. And Edward and Lillian did too. And when I saw Kenny back at the house many years ago, I said, well, this is great, the house. He goes, you know what? It wouldn't be here right now if you hadn't moved in when you moved in. Because when we moved in, the water damage was extensive through that front bay. You could literally go up to the main bedroom and look down and see one of the living spaces downstairs.
Wow.
With water coming in through the back of the turret. We had buckets out trying to, there's a movie with Tom Hanks called The Money Pit. It was, I lived that for a while,
Oh, wow.
But we fought, and we got the house watertight. All the windows are the original windows. We found a way around it thanks to my friend Mark McCluskey, who was the lead contractor, and our friend who helped us out. He was the one who originally turned me on that the place was haunted. And in fact, those two mediums that came in, the first two I talked about, they were his nieces, Jennifer and Jessica.
Oh.
So, and actually, when they read the house, like, it was Halloween night. We used to have the best Halloween parties there, But Ken said to me, he goes, if you didn't come in, the house wouldn't be here for this to be in this state now. And you were chosen, and I firmly believe this, you were chosen to be a caretaker of the house for the period of time that you were there. And I firmly believe that, because it's just, it was a property.
So I have to ask you, how did you come across to even knowing it was for sale?
That was online. That was online.
It?
Yeah, it was online. We saw it on a site, like, I don't know if it was a realtor.com or something along those lines. But we were looking for a place that had commercial and residential dual zones. And that place does. And actually, I don't know how many people know this, but the Victorian actually has 2 addresses: 4 West Broadway and 5 Union Street.
Right.
And I found that out real quick when I was sitting on the stoop one day, and the mailman walked by me, and he kept walking. And I said, well, you could just hand that to him. He goes, I can't. I said, what do you mean? I said, is it for the house? He goes, yeah. He goes, but I have to deliver it to 5 Union Street, which is, I have to do that. So I had to run in the house and meet him on the other side of it to get the mail that day. Everything else after that came 4 West Broadway. But yeah, it's zone residential, zone commercial. We had a little gift shop there at one point, and we, the house was open to the public when we were there, and that's when the tour started. And when the tour started, that's when the ghost, investigations started. And we were on, it talks about, ghost hunters. We were on the original incarnation of that show. It was season 3, and you can still see it on YouTube now. It's season 3, and the episode was called Whispers and Voices.
Okay.
But prior to Ghost Hunters coming into the house, there was another show that came in from England called Dead Famous. And they were in 2000, I want to say 2005, 2005, I think. They came over and they shot. Now, here's the irony. They were in the area looking for, now we're talking almost 20 years ago here, right? They were in the area because they were in their shtick was they would search for souls and ghosts of celebrities. And Betty Davis was from this area, and they said, we know you don't have anything to do. You want to talk about just all worlds colliding here. They said, we know about the house. We're going to be in the area. We're going to be in Lowell because Betty Davis had a whole huge thing up in Lowell. She has a big connection to it. But we want to come into the house and shoot while we're there because it's so intriguing. Even though you don't have anything to do with Betty Davis. I said, well, that's not actually true. My grandfather, and this is true, was Betty Davis's chauffeur.
Oh, wild.
And Betty Davis has been to the Victorian, as it turned out. But so hasn't Calvin Coolidge when he was president. Norman Rockwell, Minnesota Fats. It's hosted this huge, P.T. Barnum. I mean, that's P.T. Barnum was really good friends with Sylvester Pierce because when he took his circus trains through the area, he would always go to the Victorian and shoot billiards with Mr. Pierce on the upper floor, so in the billiards room. And so it's just amazing. The house really attracts everything. Then, of course, as anybody does, you get one unit in there to do an investigation. The next thing you know,
you got the phone starts ringing. Yeah,
you got everybody in there doing investigations. And we opened it up to everybody. We never said no. The only time I ever said no, which I actually reversed course, was as we were getting ready, going through a divorce, and Ghost Hunters was coming in, and that was going to be it. And Boston Paranormal, a group called Boston Paranormal, don't know if you're familiar with them, but they had shot some photographs from the outside of the house. And sure as you could see a woman in the top floor, a ghostly image of a woman, I'm saying Maddie, in the top floor. And they said, we really want to come in. And I said, well, you know what? I'm all done with the overnight investigations. They said, oh, but you look at this. I said, I understand the picture, And then he just pressed and pressed and pressed. I said, I'll tell you what, I got Ghost Hunters coming in after they're gone. And by the way, Ghost Hunters is there for like a week. Okay. I don't
Wow.
want to give
That's
away
crazy.
any secrets. Well, they got to do
Yeah.
their pickup shots, their B-roll,
Mhm.
and all that other stuff too. But so it's not unusual for them to be at a location for that long. But the main investigation is almost straight up. But anyway, I did let Boston Paranormal in, and you can see some of these photos. They're actually posted in the Victorian. It is the boy and Maddie in the mirror. That was from Boston Paranormal. So I'm glad I let them in. I gave them like 3, 4, 5 hours on a Saturday afternoon, but that was it. But I've got some amazing EVPs. Karen Mossy is from New Hampshire, of course, right next to Gardner, of course. Karen Mossy and I became great friends. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she was the country's leading EVP expert. She's been into the house a million times. She's an EVP magnet. Okay, now there was a movie called White Noise, very famous paranormal movie, White Noise. She was the EVP tech on that. So they used a lot of her EVPs in that movie, and she was on set with that film and providing technical advice. And then if you get actually the DVD version of White Noise, there's a added bonus how she teaches people how to go ahead and get EVPs. But she would just walk in the door and get 30 responses without saying a thing, But the scariest night, in quotes, was the Bill Wallace story. And Bill is no longer with us, unfortunately. But I'd come home late from the radio stations, and I went to get a pizza at the pizza shop across. And I was kind of in a, not so great mood. There was a big traffic accident. It took me 3 hours to get home, whatever. And as I crossed the house, across the street it was a rainy night too. There were 2 men in the parking lot of the pizza shop, and they were whistling the Addams Family theme.
Mm-hmm. And
I thought they were busting my, chops, and I not the night to do that. I was not in great mood that night. And one of them looked like he had really long, like almost like Dumbledore, that type of character.
Yeah.
Beard, really long white hair. And the guy next to him was younger, kind of looked more street, he had the hat and the, that type of thing going, that kind of attitude. And I got close to him, and they stopped whistling, and I looked at them and I let it go. But the minute I turned around to go into the pizza shop, they started again. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Wow.
And I around, and I got into it with them a little bit. I just said, look, I'm trying to restore this house. You over here busted me up. And do I look like, Gomez Adams to you, And I said, and I was kind of heated. I took offense to it. And I went into I said, you know what? Have a good night. And I went into the pizza shop. Well, now they follow me into the pizza shop. So now I think we're going to throw down. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And they were apologetic, very apologetic. It turns out they were brothers. So there's a difference in appearance. Mm-hmm. So, and I felt bad. And they were like, we got talking. And I said that, I said, you ever been in the house? They said, no. They said, it's a beautiful house. They were woodworkers. So they knew their craft. And I said, well, would you like to go visit the house now? I'll take you over there right now. And they were like thrilled. And I was thrilled because now we're making amends. We got off on the wrong foot. And, now it's going to be okay. I said, hold on for a minute. So I stepped outside. I called across to the house. I said, put Bear. We had a big dog named Bear. And he didn't like men that he didn't know. Loved women, didn't like men. You could be a woman and walk in the house, no problem. But you're a guy walking in the house. You might as well be face to face with a lion with this dog. He wasn't called Bear for no reason, So I said, put Bear in the cellar. I'm going to bring these 2 guys over for a tour. Not unusual. We did it all the time. So I take Bill Wallace and his brother, his name escapes me, and we take him into the house, and they're enjoying everything, and they're looking at the woodwork and admiring it because it is unbelievable. The house, just the woodwork in the house, just exquisite. It doesn't get any better. And they were really enjoying the tour. And we got to the 2nd floor, and everything's cool. But as we started to head up the stairs to the 3rd floor, nobody's talking now. You could feel the hairs on you, stick up. That electricity. It was really overwhelming. And we got to the 3rd floor, and Bill started not feeling well, and he clutched his chest, and now I'm thinking he's having a heart attack. So the minute that happens, his brother takes off And now I'm thinking, oh my God, I made a mistake. This is a diversion. This guy's going to rip me off. So I chased his brother through the house, and we got to the second floor landing, and I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing to take. And he didn't stick around for a second. He was out the door, gone. So now I'm like, oh my God, I got this guy upstairs. So I go running back up the stairs, and now Bill's kind of pulling himself together, and he's getting his color back and everything. And I'm like, Bill, I'm calling 911. He said, you don't understand. And I said, no, I'm figuring the climb up the stairs triggered. I don't know what's going on. I said, I'm calling 911. And he goes, no, don't. And he convinces me not to call 911. And he comes back pretty quick. And he turns to me and says, she knows. In fact, does she know, but she's standing right here. And I'm looking at him like, I didn't mention nothing about ghosts. I didn't mention anything about Maddie. I didn't mention any of that. We were just on a tour looking at the construction of the house. And I said, what do you mean, Bill? And he says, well, I see things, And I said, wait, before we go on, what's up with your brother? I mean, you go into distress and then he leaves you like, I don't understand. He goes, well, he doesn't really like it when I do this. He's a member of the clergy. I said, he looked like he should be, dealing on a street corner. And he goes, well, he works with inner city youth, so he kind of dresses like them. And, and I said, okay, this night can't get any more bizarre than it is now. And I said that to him, and he goes, yeah, I wouldn't say that just yet. And he goes, she knows that you know that she's here. You know that she's here. And I said, who, Bill? And he said, Maddie, she's right here. And
oh, wow.
I was stunned. And he goes, there's 3 things that she wants me to tell you. And I said, you have my full attention. And he said, he kind of spread his legs shoulder width apart and pointed through the floor. And he goes, she doesn't like your dog in the house, your big yellow dog. And he's pointing down, looking through the floor like he's looking into the cellar. He goes, because I can see him in the cellar right here. And I'm like, well, we're paying the mortgage. You know what I mean? The dog stays. She goes, well, she just has an issue with it because back in the 1800s, this never would have been allowed. Dogs would never be allowed to roam. I said, I understand that. I said, but, there stays, He goes, okay. And he said something else, and he says, oh, there's something in the cellar that you have to find and get out of the house. It bothers her. And I said,
the cellar.
I have to go to the cellar to find. I go, what am I looking for, Bill? And he said, he goes, I don't know. He goes, but I could tell you where. He goes, it's flat. It's like a piece of paper. It's like, could be a document. And he again looks down and points at through the 3rd floor to the cellar, which is really the 3rd floor in that house is like the 4th floor and of any other building. And he goes, it's by the mason jars, by the staircase in the cellar that leads to the kitchen. That's where you look in there. You'll know when you find it. So he leaves. We became great friends. After that, he'd been back a million times. And then I was like, okay. So I get down to the cellar. And I don't find anything, but I called my buddy Michael, who I do the films with, and my best friend, and I said, look, you're not gonna believe what happened. This guy comes over to the house. And I tell him the story I just told, and then he says, "Oh, go back down and look again." Well, I got you on the phone. I said, "Michael, I already been down there. I've gone through every mason jar. First and foremost, it was amazing because he described the place to a T, and it had never been. We didn't even go in the cellar because Bear was there, right?" And so I move mason jars aside, and I see one that catches my attention. It's empty, but there's a label on it, and it said Peaches was printed on the label, but somebody crossed off Peaches and wrote with red pen the date of 1957, but on either side of Peaches printed on that label were 2 swastikas printed.
Oh.
So I said, if you look at the railings and the artwork and the woodwork of the Victorian, when you come in, there are Stars of David that make that up. So the connection comes immediately. Stars of David and swastikas don't go together. I call up my buddy Mark, who got me into this paranormal stuff to begin with. the contractor. I said, Mark, what do I do? He goes, get it out of the house, but put it somewhere. I have the girls read it. And as that mason jar crossed the threshold from inside to outside of the house, literally a gust of wind came out of nowhere and lifted that label off. It disintegrated in front of my eyes and blew away in the wind.
My God.
Now, I told that story when I was in radio on I told it with the XLO morning show way back when. So we had Chris Zito, Stephen Donovan, and Jen Carter on the air. And so we actually did a live broadcast at the Victorian. We flew a psychic in from Colorado, and I told these stories, and she corroborated everything. Her name was Sid the Psychic. Gardner News, if you go back in the archives, wrote a big story on it. And that's real radio. It was stopped. But I told that story on the air to get it going, to get people involved with the house and some of the backstory before the psychic came in, which, by the way, again, was on Halloween, which happened that year on a Friday, and the weather was 72 degrees out. I'll never forget it. So we had the big broadcast up the Victorian. And when I got back to my desk after originally telling the story about a week before we actually did the broadcast up there, I got a call from a gentleman who said, you didn't mention the fire in the house. I said, no, I know that. I don't want to give everything away. You know, I don't want the psychic to get any information about this house, because back then, you know, again, the internet was not what it is today. There was no social media. So he said, yeah, it was my uncle who died in the fire. So it was Ines Sare's nephew.
Wow.
10 years old at the time of his uncle's death. He was never allowed in the house because Ines had a bad drinking problem. And he rented a room there because throughout periods of this house's history, it was a boarding house. So Ines Sare's, he was 10 years old, saw the fire department pull his uncle's body out of the house, decided right then and there that he wanted to become a firefighter. He became a firefighter, and he was stationed at the fire station right up the street. I don't know if it's still there, but back then there was a fire station literally right up the street from the Victorian, and that's where he was stationed. And his first call as a professional firefighter, and all the mediums and psychics will tell you that Maddie was there to protect the house. And in fact, Sid said she had to chase men. There were 2 men she had to chase out of the house in recent times, which would have been the 70s or whatever at that point. And that was his call. They got chased out of the house by Maddie, and he responded to that call. And the night that I brought him into the house, he had never been in before, ever. And now he's an adult, retired from firefighting, and he got the Torah. That was very pins and needles that night. And it just continues, you know, it continues.
Yeah.
Had their own experience with there. Think about how many thousands of people have been through that mansion since I owned it.
I know. Definitely.
Never mind.
That's amazing.
Never mind before going from 1875 all the way up through when Jay Stemmerman decided that he wasn't going to come back anymore and he was going to sell the house. You know, he was in poor health at the time too. So it was just a burden on the Stemmerman family to have that, just the upkeep or whatever, which never really was upkept. You know what I mean? It was what it was. And, but it's the all Americana story, move into a Victorian man. I mean, how many movies have had this as the theme,
Right.
Move into a abandoned Victorian mansion that hasn't been lived in 30 years, only to find out. Well, we found out that there's a whole nother realm that we're not fully in tune with yet.
Do you believe that the renovations kicked up the activity in the house?
I do. And you know what, Laura? I was really, really careful on the terminology, renovations and restoration. I never called it renovations. I always called it a restoration because I didn't want Maddie getting pissed off at me. You know what I mean? And it kept me in check,
Right.
I think what happened was we didn't have, like I said, Red Rum or the twins with the holding hands, come play with me, all that, shining stuff. And I took it seriously. And I told you earlier that I didn't want any part of that. I wanted to believe in the paranormal. I wanted to embrace it, but I didn't want the bad side of it. So I wanted my cake and I wanted to eat it too. But I learned really early that if you respected it, then you would be okay.
Mhm.
And any investigation that we did there, and we are talking people like, especially with Wicca,
Mhm.
cutting the circle and making sure that everything is done properly, or holding a pair of dowsing rods on the second floor and having them spin like a Sikorsky helicopter. It was, to me, there was no other explanation. The piano that's downstairs in that foyer, that front foyer, we brought that piano in there. We were going to restore it, but it doesn't really work. But every morning you'd hear it, you know? And even when Edwin moved in and Lillian moved in at first, you know, I'd get calls from him when I was still at the radio station. He'd call me like every other day. Did this happen to you? Is there a cuckoo clock I don't know about? Because I keep hearing it. Footsteps. That piano plays every day. This. And I would go, yes, that happened. Yes, that happened. I don't know about a cuckoo clock. No. Yes. You know, and we go down a checklist, you know, and I think what happened too with them in their time there, I think some things weren't done properly. We knew we had a portal at the Newell post on the main staircase. That was always every psychic that we had come in and said, there's a portal right here. But since that time, others have opened up on the in the cistern up on the third floor, which used to be the old servants' quarters. That cistern room, there's a portal there. There's also one in the basement. And I think things leaked in. One thing I would never allow in the house, and I still don't to this very day. Well, there's two things I don't allow in houses. One is candles. Ain't happening. You know what I mean? I've been through 2 house fires in my life. I'd be damned if that would burn down. And it's the same thing right here. Just too many accidents can happen. The other thing is Ouija boards. I don't allow Ouija board in it because I don't know enough about it. And you know what? Whether or not they had a Ouija board experience there and things came in, you can't control that doorway. And I know that. And bad things happen when people play around with things they don't know about. And with a Ouija board, for me, it's too much of a chance to take. So I never allowed that. Like there were 2 kids when I was there, you know, Alex and Victoria, you know, and I never allowed. They were, Alex would always, I'd constantly hear him talking, having full-blown conversations when he was probably like 6 or 7 years old, maybe even younger. And I go, Alex, who are you talking to? I was like, oh, nobody. You know, you always get that response. Victoria, when she was a little girl, would wake up to a man standing at the foot of her bed, you know, with his hands on the bedpost, leaning in toward her. There was some evil stuff that happened in that house. There's no doubt about it. Joni Mayon's book, Bones in the Basement, kind of touched on it. Joni's a good friend of mine too.
Yeah, she was a guest on mine as well.
Yeah,
very good person.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah. We went to the book signing of Bones in the Basement. We got like an acknowledgement, and we're in it a little bit. You know, family I had back then, we're in it a little bit, but it mainly concentrated on Edward and Lillian's story.
Yeah,
and, you know, there were some things that were done. They have made, you know, I don't know personally, but other investigators who I'm close with, when they took over the house, you can't sell tickets to a ghost investigation. You just can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think,
And they did, you know. And whether or not they were, I wish no harm on anybody, and I have no negative feelings toward Edward and Lillian. Again, they were caretakers of the house too, so you have to respect that. But what happened to them, that's a whole nother realm.
It is compared to you living there. It's a whole different,
And I really believe that the people that you bring in to do investigations, if you got to sit in the circle and they need a ceremonial dagger to cut the circle and to close the circle, then so be it. I'm not going to say that this is nuts. You know what you're doing. You've been doing it for a long time. So I'm going to respect your knowledge and I'm going to respect your experience to come in here and be able to do these things. And I always went with that. You're the expert. I'm, you know what I'm, and over the years, I did learn a lot about the paranormal. I mean, so much so that I had mentioned this to you before, Susan, that, there's a film out. You can look back, and it came out in 2007. It's called 14 Degrees, and it's 1-4 degrees. It's a paranormal documentary. I'm the narrator. I also host it on camera too, and the on-camera shots, a lot of them were taking inside the Victorian. Ran in the theaters for a while, but it's a pretty cool paranormal documentary. Again, you want to look it up. You can find a DVD. I'm sure it's streaming somewhere, but it's 14 Degrees.
14 Degrees. Got you.
Yeah. And it was put together, and we had a good time doing that. I was still in radio at the time as well. So that was a good film. I mean, every film project I've ever done has been with Michael Savino, except for this one. But this was an independent project that come in, and because I was still living in the house at the time and owned it, that they wanted me to go ahead and take that lead.
Awesome.
So
That's awesome. We actually we're going to have several pictures to show, if you don't mind, Mark.
I can comment on them.
Carl could bring them up. We're just going to go one at a time. If Carl could bring them right up. So there are actually some pictures that I took as well when I went on an investigation. So so here it is.
That one right there hangs. We had the actual photograph, actually. That was hanging in the first floor foyer. That is the Victorian in all of its absolute glory. You could see the fence that wasn't there when we moved in. The ironwork atop of the turret was not there. It hasn't been back since. The shutters are back up right now. Again, that's with Rob and Allison Conti, and of course Marion, providing that. But that right there, I think that shot right there is my favorite picture of the Victorian of all time. Yeah. And it's period too. That was taken probably right after it's built. Okay.
This is actually the furniture place that S.K Pierce actually owned.
Okay. Now this is interesting because that's right across the street where I think they still called it Standard Chair. I'm not sure. I didn't really look the last time, but that was directly across the street from the Victorian. Now there is a tunnel, or was a tunnel, that led from the Victorian to that manufacturing plant underneath. And you could see in the basement where that tunnel started. It's been blocked off and filled in since, because back then you're talking horse and wagon. Now you're talking tractor trailers. Yeah, obviously they had to fill it in. But that's Sylvester Pierce's manufacturing plant. And a lot of respect for Sylvester Pierce, because he was one of, I believe, 14 children and a single mom. His father died when he was I think he was 14 years old. Sylvester K. Pierce went off to live with his sister and her new husband on their farm. He was a journeyman, an apprentice in carpentry and woodworking, and actually came back to worked at the plant that he ended up buying. So he was a self-made man. Nothing was handed to him. The newel post lamp. Okay. We put that there. We installed that. That is not, originally it was a gas lamp. You could see the piping where the piping was. And a lot of times they would take the blueprints and put them in the newel post too, but we didn't find any blueprints when we opened it up. That newel post lamp is very similar. I mean, almost exact what was there originally. But that newel post lamp is electric, and it was bought at Riata Ranch. It's resin. Right there. That's you can see actually the montage next to the door that I put together. That's when we were there. That right there. I mean, where do you find, when we opened the house, before we moved in, we were told by the realtor to open the house up because of the interest. And the Newport Mansions, a couple of guys came up from the breakers, and they were just all over it. They were like, this wood is just,
it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It is so hard wood that you cannot put a nail through it. You have to actually, if you want to put anything into it, you have to drill a hole first. You can't just bang a nail into it. All right, that room right there. Okay, that's recent now. Beautiful hardwoods, you could see.
Yeah.
The heating grate on the side here. It was all gravity fed, at first, and it's not exactly efficient. And then it became blower fed. There was a 3.5 Briggs and Stratton motor that somebody had hooked up to the furnace to put the heat. But that was one thing. The innovation at the time of the heating system and the gravity fed water system and everything was just amazing. But that room was originally one of the parlor back in the 1800s. But that was one of the rooms that we had the store and the boutique in. The first two rooms when you come in that front door at 4 West Broadway, to the left and to the right.
Amazing. There's another picture of it during the holidays.
Yeah, beautiful. Again, and going right up that step.
So supposedly one of the portals is right in back of that. Correct?
One of the portals is at that newel post. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
So this I took a picture of because I was told that there's a story behind this. If you could look really closely, there's writing in there. And I don't know whether or not it's a poem or what.
I actually have that same shot that I took. It was etched into the wood. I haven't fully deciphered it yet, but I believe it was written by Sylvester Pierce or one of the Pierce brothers. That's where the water supply started. Up in the attic, there's a series of aqueducts, or there were, and it would take the rainwater and filter it into that cistern. So the cistern would be in back of what you're looking at now.
Yep.
A huge water tank. Unfortunately, it was lead lined again. Another thing that they didn't know back in the Victorian times. So that absolutely caused lead poisoning to some people, no doubt about it, over the years. But I got to decipher that myself, Susan. I've got several shots of that. It's very hard to do. I'm going to have to bring it into Photoshop and enhance it to read what it says. Yes, the Red Room.
Beautiful.
Every haunted house has to have a red room, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That was the bedroom, my bedroom when I was there. Nothing ever really happened there to us. Now, if you go through the door that you see opened up right there, it would lead into another room, and then it keeps going on and on and on and on and on. That's actually right next to the room looking in that direction to the left. With the next room over is going to be, which was Victoria's room at the time, but that's going to be a nanny's room. The nanny's room is right next door to it. Just amazing.
Yeah, so that's how it is today.
So majestic.
Yeah.
The architecture on the Victorian is Second Empire style Victorian, and Second Empire style Victorian is an emphasis on three things: height, mass, and weight. And they nailed it.
That's gorgeous. Yeah, we have a lot of those around here too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. You go into Gardner and it just hits you. It's like, here I'm here.
You know what?
Crazy.
You're so right, because the first time we rounded that corner, all right, you come up off the highway, you go around the rotary, you come up, and then you got to take a left. Now, right in front of you, before you take that left, is that convenience store. You take that left, and the minute you do that thing, the first time I ever saw it, it punches you right in the face.
Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. It's an amazing place. Absolutely. And this is S.K Pierce.
Yeah. Sylvester Pierce in his later years. A very astute businessman. He did really well. One of the reasons why he did so well in commerce, especially Gardner being the furniture capital of the world at one point, was because he had a team of horses and blacksmiths. In fact, there were 3 blacksmiths on that census record from 1880 I was talking about. And they would keep originally that whole land. There was a big barn. If you looked at the front of Victorian to the right where that house is, that was all part of the Victoria. There was another big, huge, massive barn there when we moved in. They actually had to tear it down because it became too dangerous to keep up anymore. But that's where his horses were and everything right there on site.
I believe this is what it was when you got it, right, Mark?
No, that's basically But you could see, and this photo is a little pixelated, but you see those colors on the house, the dark gold yellow, the green, the forest green. There were 4 colors, the maroon or burgundy, the forest green, the cream, and the dark gold. And those were the colors that the Victorian originally was. Those colors were picked out before we even saw the Victorian. They were picked out, and if you ever have a Victorian, they're going to be these colors. And when we started putting up the paint and all of that stuff you see below in the lower bays, that was all like heat gunned off to reveal the dental molding and everything, all the detail that we could. Those we painted that was all hand painted. We were doing it ourselves. And a woman came by one day, and she was 100-something years old. And she came by one day. She goes, I used to go to ice cream socials here when I was a kid, like in the 20s and, the 10s, And she goes, that's the same color. That's the color that the house was back then. Exactly where you have it. The cream was on that detail. The green was on that detail. And the body of the house was the gold. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's another picture of the red room.
Yeah, the red room. Again, Victorian style wallpaper, Victorian style, furniture. There's so many different facts. The first Buick ever sold in the area was sold from the Victorian to a man in New Hampshire who used it as a delivery vehicle because the Pierce brothers had competing horseless carriage lots. One had Studebaker, I believe, and the other one was like Buick.
This is my absolutely favorite room.
Beautiful room. Absolutely beautiful room. The color is amazing. The contrast between the woodwork and the wallpaper is superb.
And the wallpaper's type of like a velvet.
Yeah.
It's really pretty.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I got to say is that's what it was like back in the Victorian time. You had that textured wallpaper. That wallpaper is not cheap.
Yeah.
By any stretch.
Oh no, yeah, to have it reproduced is very
it's the most expensive you could probably buy in today's market. Yeah.
Without the arsenic.
Without the arsenic. Exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely incredible.
But it's just an amazing place, and it's great for a movie, and that's why we're working on that. It's the Second Empire style Victorian architecture is what Hollywood told you that a haunted house was supposed to be. Because if you look at Psycho, same thing, the Monstrous House, you can go on and on and on, but that is the haunted house model. It's absolutely the haunted house model. That place is haunted, man. You can just go by it.
Yeah. So, Mark, have you been to other locations to do investigations?
I have not. Let's see. No, I haven't. I've had opportunities to go, or invitations to go. A lot of people want to go on ghost hunts with me. And I want to go on ghost hunts. You know what I mean? It's great. I have not been to another location though to do it. I was so wrapped up with that property for the longest time, and everything else that I'm doing. But I think in 2025, I definitely want to. There's a couple of people who I know that are pseudo celebrities and musicians and stuff that are pretty well known that are all into it too. And we'd always talk backstage about the house and stuff. And they say, "Oh, we want to go up there and investigate." I said, "Anytime, man, anytime." It never happened. But I mean, maybe we can, get an investigation together. We'll go there, maybe another place. And then I'll call up some of my friends in the music industry that you would know. And maybe they would want to tag along too. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. What was in Bones in the Basement was saying that when Edward and Lillian did own the property, a lot of damage was done to it as well, with paranormal investigations, just not respecting the property.
I never ran into that. That's so funny you say that. I didn't, I forgot that was in the book, actually. I never ever, not once. And we're talking, I wish I knew what the count was, but well over 100 full-blown overnight investigations. Probably it was every weekend, forever. And some during the day. But I never, Look, if you're in a group and you go into a property and you're destructive, or careless, maybe might be a better word. That's not boding well for anybody. You know what I mean? And I never ran into that with any paranormal investigator, so I'm a little surprised to actually be remembered of that.
It was definitely, they definitely respected you. I just feel like it completely did a 360 once Lillian and Edward took it over. In particular, how she left the property. I mean, she explained in the book that she got possessed.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's why she had to leave.
He found her down in the basement. That's that's where the title comes, And we had always heard about that. When I moved into the house, we had heard about that. That's the one thing about that property, was that when we moved in and hadn't been, active in so long, that I'd go to the grocery store and come back, and there'd be a box full of documents and photographs just left there. Hey, listen, thought you might like to see this. It's yours. Keep it in the house, from just various people. I've met people who lived there in various points, 30s, 60s, and 70s. It was a boarding house, at various times during those decades. And I've met people who I met a gentleman there who rented a room there in the 30s. I met a couple who stayed there. They were actually, you know what their room was? It was the tower. They had a little mattress in the tower room. That was their room that they rented. Wow. And they left because when they came by the second floor to leave the house, there'd be a rocking chair rocking. It was actually in the nanny's room. They would see a rocking chair rocking all the time, and that spooked them. They couldn't deal with it. So it really comes down to the history. I mean, for that building to be there is a testament to the construction of it, really.
Yeah. And I know they originally wanted to turn it into a bed and breakfast, but the town is not allowing them to.
Yeah, they're you know what? When I was there, and it really surprised me. That house is the number one tourist thing in that area. So if I were to the town, why wouldn't I want to support it? You know what I mean? I mean, you bring in people, you're going to bring in business. Okay. I mean, that's just the way it is. When we shot our third film, Days Before Christmas, which is a horror film, it's a short, we needed them all. And we needed them all decorated for Christmas. And we had like less than 2 months to produce this movie and to get it out to HBO. And so our pitch to the mall was, look, your mall's not doing well right now. If you sell one pack of gum because we are here, that's better than selling no gum, right? And I kind of look at things that way, so that when you are into a situation where you're in a property and you need to be able to go ahead and have this. So you got people coming from all over the world to see this place. Marion, before I did the tour in November, she hosted 9 women who flew up from Australia.
I know.
To go to the house.
I know.
So the town is, but when I moved into that house, that was a question. It's like, the building inspector was there, and I know that they've changed building inspectors. There was a big problem with the last building inspector. I know that. But when I moved there, it wasn't that. It was a different building inspector, and the mayor had come over, and the building inspector came over, and he goes, okay, here's your permit. And I said, okay, what does this cover? He goes, everything, man. Put it up in the window. It covers everything. I said, electrical, everything. Goes, anything you need to do, it covers. But they didn't have that same, when Rob Conti bought it, and they didn't have that same experience with the town. And to me, I thought it was absolutely unbelievable that the town wasn't supporting this property. Your number one tourist spot, and you're giving them a hard time. I don't get it. Whether or not they turn it into a bed and breakfast, if that's the way that they want to take that, then that's great. I'm hoping they don't before we shoot.
So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they're not protecting the home as a historical site.
We didn't do that on purpose. I don't know if that status has changed. We did not. We could have. We were offered that when we moved in 2000. Again, it was Memorial Day weekend on my birthday that moved into that place. And we didn't do that for one specific reason, that you're not going to tell me what I can and can't do with the restoration because it's a historical site. You're not going to tell me that I need to use this color paint here because it's within the guidelines of what you perceive to be protecting an historical property. So it was really, I didn't want to take away the freedom that we had to do what we needed to do. We were going to restore the house full-blown Victorian anyway. We weren't going to change anything, rip out walls and make apartments out of it. That's for sure. So I wasn't going to have some historical society bind me by some kind of charter saying I can and can't do this and that when they're not paying the mortgage on it or the taxes, property taxes.
I see.
You know, so.
Hey, Joe, welcome. We're actually talking with Mark about the S.K Pierce Mansion. He was actually the owner in the year 2000. So we've been on for about an hour now, and we're just chatting about it. Yeah, unbelievable. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's quite a place. I mean, how many newspaper articles, books? I've got a treasure trove of articles. We kept the Gardner News in business, I think, for a while there because we were always on the front page. I mean, there was a time you would talk about strange happenings where, Bear would be out in the front. Everybody knew him. He'd be there just kind of laying in the grass. And one day a chicken showed up and never left. We called him Charlie the Chicken. The Gardner News put him on the front page of the paper. Charlie the Chicken, arrives at the Victorian and he stayed. And he'd lay right next to Bear and the two would watch traffic go by all day long. And when winter came, the guys from the South Gardner Hotel built him a little chicken coop and they'd bring him inside for the winter. And he would run around that whole area there, that whole block. He'd run around. You'd see him on the sidewalk and, every once in a while a dog would chase him, but he'd always seem to outrun them. And, and then he'd come back and lay down next to our dog Bear on the lawn. And it was just the most bizarre thing. It's just, I explain that, he just showed up out of nowhere one day. And we checked with the local farms in the area and nobody was missing a chicken. So we didn't know what happened there.
Mystery chicken.
Yeah, Charlie the Chicken. But hopefully we get back there and we do some more investigations. I know that she's got the place booked pretty well. And Marion does a great job there. She does an amazing job keeping things organized, booking. She was great when we went back and shot the movie trailer there. Just couldn't be more accommodating. And it's just again, it's somebody that I've met in my life that I met her when I first moved in. So I've known her for a long time. And,
Now, is there a fee to investigate the property?
Yeah, they do. They do fees. Yeah. They do fees. When I lived there, we never charged anybody because I was more curious about what they would find. So I don't think we ever charged anybody until one day somebody says, "Hey, you ought to put a tip jar out at least." It's like, yeah, man. I should have, but I never did. But this is a different situation, I mean, they charge you to go into Disney World. So, and this is better, by the way. So there is a fee, I'm sure. I'm not sure how Marion's got it set up. I mean, that would be more of a question for her. When we went back and shot the trailer there, we did pay a fee. Because, it's a business and they were accommodating to us. We needed the place. So they should get back. The tours I did back on November 2nd. Obviously, there were fees for that, and tickets were.
I mean, and if you think about it, you have to pay for the heat. You have to pay all those expenses as well and maintain the property. I believe when I went about 3 years ago, it was about $500, but you could have up to 5 people, so it was a flat fee.
Yeah, and you think of the hours that you're there.
Yep.
So that's not too bad.
No.
Yeah, as far as fees go, when Dead Famous came in and shot, I think they paid $200 or $250 for a location fee. When Ghost Hunters came in, though, they paid us $5 at that time, which at that time they said that was the most they had ever paid for rights to shoot on a property. And that was back in 2006.
My question is to you: when you had Ghost Hunters in, Because all of the ghost hunter shows, they're all mostly scripted because of television to bring in the ratings. But when they did their investigations, did any of the data that they collect match up with the stories and the findings that you had experienced on the property?
They I had evidence, a lot of great evidence, actually, that I wanted to show them, but they didn't want to see it. And I get it because I didn't want to be influenced by it. And I'll be honest with you, there was some EVPs they got.
Mm-hmm.
There was a tower incident where the camera inexplicably shaked. And I think they found something in the basement, but they didn't find a whole lot. You know what I mean? It's almost like the ghosts were like, oh, these guys again,
Right. Well, yeah, they're not going to perform on when the
But it was
camera
great.
starts rolling. They don't, yell action. But
Yeah,
I
when they did
was
the
curious.
reveal, you know how they do it at the end. So they came in, did the reveal, and they had the EVP. They had the footage of the camera shaking, and they had something that happened in the basement. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyway, well, yeah, that was it was good. It was just having the privilege of having them there.
Yeah. And I mean, and this house is booked every day. I wouldn't, I would have probably figured that it probably is already booked for the middle of next year. It's booked every single day.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be. We we'll get in there though. We'll definitely get in there.
I want to get in there with you, definitely.
Because I when I go in, there's a feeling, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of
There
like
is, yeah.
that I get, that it's like, oh yeah, I'm back, that type of
I
thing.
think when the last time I went was Brandy Wells was doing an event there, and we actually spoke to S.K Pierce himself. He came through.
You know what? It's funny you mentioned that, Susan, because I'm getting a lot of that lately by people saying that they have run into him there.
Yeah.
I can't say that I did. It was mainly Maddie and the little boy, and Enos. Sorry, I some Class A EVPs on Enos, who spoke fluent Portuguese. One of them, we were sitting in the dining room, lights out. Is there anybody here who wants to talk to us? And all of a sudden you hear it, and I have it. I'll send it to you, and it's like all of a sudden it's like the guy that asked the question got really flustered. He was like, whoa, and then lights come on.
Mm-hmm.
A white moth had just hit his head out of nowhere. We didn't think anything of that. And when he played it back, you could hear, is anybody here that want to say anything? Whatever, paraphrasing. And all of a sudden you hear, plain as day, Class A EVP, because there's different classes. And you could hear the word porteo, but it was said more like porteo, like a EVP would sound. Mm-hmm. And it's like potato. What? We went weeks with trying to figure out what was going on there. And when the guy who did it was playing it, his grandmother was walking by, and he goes, I can't figure out what this is. We're racking our brains. And she goes, play it back. And she goes, that means good luck in Portuguese. Mm-hmm. And he goes, oh. He goes, did you know if a white moth brushes up against your skin, especially your face, it means good luck? So we had the moth and we had the EVP hit simultaneously, and we didn't know it until his grandmother came out and said it, which is another great story, another great story. So,
oh yeah, Joe, because Joe's just saying they're looking for a new place to do another documentary. That would probably be a good place, Joe. It says the history is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard pressed to get. There were I grew up in Northbridge, Whitensville area. There was a place there called the Victorian. Unfortunately, that had burned down a little while back. And Paul Newman stayed there, and Joanne Woodward and Tom Cruise and all these people had stayed there. and that burned down a little while back. I believe they're trying to rebuild it, but you could have $1 trillion to rebuild a property like that, and it will never be. It will never be, because you're not going to be able to find the original woods. You're not going to be able to find the original ways of doing the things that they did. Because if you think about it, when they built the Victorian, they got how much weight the roof alone puts pressure on that house.
Yeah.
There are tons of slate up there. We had to remove some of the slate around the back, and some of it's gone. And they may have even re-roofed some of it, but just that the slate alone, when it was in its glory, we're talking tons of slate up there. And it's got to be strong. There's no, I mean, 2x4 is a 2x4, but a 2x4 back then was like a 3x6 almost. It was hardwoods. They were forging nails on site. They were just no power tools. You know, it was just amazing. It's almost, to me, you know, more intriguing on how they built that thing than how they built the pyramids of Giza, you know, because I have a theory on that. But, you know, just to get all these guys out there, of course, then you have to move the house. So 2 streets up on the right hand, or 2 houses up on the right hand side of Union was the original house that's got on that lot. And it was moved.
It was moved, yeah. And it took, it said it took 100 men a year and a half to build, and it's 7,000 square feet.
Yeah. Square footage is always up in the air on exactly the square footage of the place. It's between 7 and 10,000. Because you got to figure out what are they counting? You know what I mean? Are they counting the basement? Are they counting, you know, where are their figures coming from? But still 7,000 square feet, you know, and you got 13-foot ceilings down there.
Yeah.
Especially on the first floor, not so much on the second, on the third floor. But as you notice, when you walk into the house, the first floor is very ornate. The second floor, that's where the bedrooms are. So cool.
Yep.
When you get to that third floor, it's a totally different design almost as far as the woodwork and the ornaments go. There are hardly any, because that's the servants' quarters. So that floor, you know, and every single one of those carvings isn't just there for design. It's there for some religious symbolism. You know, every carving that they have there has a meaning to it. It's not just thrown up to look pretty, you know, especially in the dining room. You know, you look at the carvings above the doorway in the dining room, very intricate hand carved stuff, very religious, because back then, if you think about it, that was a very sacred area of the house where the family would eat together. Then you go through the butlers and the maids' pantries, where the dumbwaiter is. Just it's shocking. It's awe-inspiring there. I mean, those cabinets go floor to ceiling, all original. Nothing. All that base stuff in that house is all original, except for in those 2 rooms downstairs, they had ripped out the built-in bookcases. We got there. There was an auction company out of New Jersey who came in and gutted the house for everything that they could gut, and they took things that they shouldn't have taken, and we tried to get them back. But to no avail. So we had to recreate those inner bookshelves in those rooms downstairs. We had to renovate. The only thing we had to renovate now, here goes renovate and restoration. The renovate side of things is the bathroom upstairs, which has been since restored back to more what it would look like. But it was still like the clawfoot tub and everything was still in there, but we just need a little bit more room. And so we took out a wall and put a walk-in shower at the end, which has now since been taken out and then, you know, put back to the way it was. But even in the bathrooms right now in the Victorian, you got your pull chain.
Yep.
You know,
fantastic.
Everything's all Victorian. Yeah, absolutely. Because back then, all the water that came through the house was fed through that cistern, and with the weight of the water in the cistern, it would press it down through the pipes, and that's why you'll see 2 rooms. Actually, maybe 2 rooms for sure on the bedroom floor, the second floor. The nanny's room has a sink. The nursery room had a sink. And then I can't remember if the other ones are. So there's 2 sinks there on that second floor. And that is your first form of running water. But again, lead pipes coming from a lead line cistern a floor above. So I can only imagine the havoc that raised, you know, back in the day.
Oh yeah. That's what they had. That's what they needed.
Amazing. Anybody, please feel free if you want to put on the comments any questions that you have for Mark. But yeah, we're just chatting away.
Yeah, it's great. Halloween was great. The kids loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
We do about 1,000 trick-or-treaters a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized I had to take Halloween off, and which is a tradition that I continue to this day. I never work Halloween. I always want to be there to hand out candy. That was a whole nother level, though. I saw kids grow up. I saw kids scared to go into the house. We would let them in the Union Street breezeway, and you'd see some kids run up to the stairs and turn around and run away again. But the next year they came back and they did it. So that was a big thing in their life. And one little boy one year said, "Mister, I was here last year and I was too scared to go in, but I'm a big boy now and I'm going in."
Oh,
And,
man.
it was great, just to have fun, to share it with the community. It was a wonderful time,
That's incredible.
and then, which again, the community support, non-governmental issues,
Mm-hmm.
huge, has been huge throughout the years. But as far as the appreciation that, and I don't know anybody in the current regime in Gardner, they're going to know us soon when we shoot the film. But I don't know them like I knew the last people there that were in those roles, the mayor and everybody else.
So Pam has a question. What advice do you give someone who is buying their first Victorian home who may not think it is haunted?
What are you gonna do? If it's 2-period Victorian, if it's on a level like the S.K Pierce Mansion, it's haunted. And there's levels of it, though. The way I look at it is, there's too much energy that has gone. There was so much energy to build those places to begin with. There was more energy throughout the entire history of the house. That energy leaves energy residue, for the lack of a better term. I'm sure there are places that aren't. But if you look at the history of the house, here's what I would advise. I would advise find as much history on that house as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And then you'll at least know what you're dealing with as far as past experiences go. And if you are dealing with past experiences, and there is a spirit, there is a situation where you're running into the paranormal, then I would suggest that you would be better armed to deal with it, knowing the past history of the house. And then if you know the past history of the house, you can almost accept it better. But I'm not saying every place is haunted. It's just there's something with the Victorians, because the Victorians in the 1800s, there's been a lot of traffic through those properties over the years, and I would suggest that you just history. Look at the history of the house. And you know what? If it's really a predominant property like the S.K Pierce Mansion, now don't forget, Gardner News has been around a long time. A lot of those newspapers back then were the only form of news. So he was getting written about all the time. That house has been written about since day one. And so for us, it wasn't hard to find the history of the house. It came to us. There's always more to be investigated. Like when I told that story about, the census records from 1880, that's another thing too. If you're buying a Victorian home like that, what you should do is see if you can go back and find the census records from a particular year. Again, 1890, I don't believe exists, but if it's anywhere from 1875, like the S.K Pierce Mansion, all the way up through present day, it shouldn't be too hard to go ahead and find a census record from the property. That's always a good thing. And historical society too, if it's a true Victorian, his local historical societies would absolutely have something on the original owner, because back then those were the big cash people, obviously, titans of industry, as they say, so to speak. So it's usually not very hard to find information on any Victorian property like that.
Right. Pam, I can't find your other question, so if you could retype it, I would appreciate it.
And the other thing is too, just respect it if you run into something like that. Now, obviously, if you've got shadow people chasing you, down wanting to do harm, that's a whole different ball game, But again, I just made sure And the reason why I went to Maddie first, well, it was obvious. It was an obvious choice because she was the protector of the house, and I knew that. So I'm going to go to the protector of the house and say, look, we're your friends. We're not here to do you any harm. We want to, we're going out on a limb here for you. Porteo. And I could be wrong on the spelling, but it's Portao, I believe. And it means good luck in Portuguese. I could have the spelling wrong. Have I had experience in the house that I've never disclosed? I'm pretty much an open book. I always talked about these things that I've never disclosed. Yeah, I've disclosed it to friends, but not. Actually, yeah, that's a good question. Here's one. The night before we did the radio broadcast there with Sid the Psychic, and her name is spelled CYD. You can look her up. I hope she's still with us. She was amazing. I was on the third floor because that's where my office was. And that's where we would screenwrite. Michael and I would always screenwrite on the third floor. So I was on the third floor a lot. And all of a sudden, it was the night before the radio broadcast. So we're getting things ready in the house for the radio broadcast the next day. And there was this incredibly loud footstep march up the stairs. It was, I mean, like you recorded it for a movie. It was so loud and so real that I thought it was my buddy Mark coming up up the stairs, our contractor.
Right.
And when I went out and looked in the hallway, you could hear it coming up the stairs through the hallway. And when I looked out, I didn't see anything. And when I looked down the hallway, I didn't see anything. And I went to the stairs and I didn't see anything. And my ex was at the bottom of the stairs, and she goes, "Who's in the house?" I said, "I was just going to ask you the same." We both heard it, and there was nobody there. That was really, actually, that was one of the times that I was really almost scared with those footsteps.
Yeah, it catches you off guard.
Night before the radio broadcast, so they knew that broadcast was coming in.
Wow. Yeah.
They did. There was, whenever we had an action thing like that, they would know, it seems. And that, I don't know who was coming up the stairs to tell me that, like, what time, whatever the spirit was trying to tell me, but they were very heavy footstep, work boots coming up those stairs across hardwoods. And when you get into a big space like that in a hallway, the sound does tend to reverberate and echo a little bit.
It does. Yeah.
That much more intense. Yeah. So there's one. Actually, that's a great question. Great question. The relationship thing. I am so happily. There's a thing where you go through life and you experience incredible pain. It could be emotional pain. It could be physical pain. I've always known this. When my ex decided to pull the plug on the relationship, I was in incredible pain because I knew that the house was going to have to go. That and just the relationship. It came out of the blue. I didn't see it coming. So I had to face that pain for a long time. But when you embrace the pain, and you face the pain, when you come out on the other side of it, you're a higher sense of yourself. You're better off than you were, and you don't realize it at the time. But that's exactly what happened to me, because when I found out what was going on behind my back, and the devastation it caused me and that house that I love so much, I said, all right, fine. And then funny thing is, I went up on Match.com, right? I mean, this is the early days of the internet. I go up on Match.com. I'm like, all right, okay, then I'm going to get a girlfriend. So I go up on Match.com. I go up, and this is a funny story. I go up to Match.com. I filled out my profile. I don't even really know what I'm doing. I picked any picture I could. I don't remember what the picture was. It probably wasn't very good. But it was more of a damn you know, that type of thing. And if anybody wants to know why we had to get rid of the house, that was the reason why. I don't always bring it out, but we might as well just get it out in the air. So I get up to Match.com and I fill out my profile and I send everything off to be looked at by whoever's going to be my next, whatever. And it was really in a moment of spite. That's why I did it. And so that night I thought to myself, I said, you know what? This is stupid. I said, I meet hundreds of women a week. My job, I'm out at events all the time. I don't need this Match.com stuff. I'm in radio. I'm still relatively young. I'm going to go up. This is BS. I don't want anything to do with this Match.com thing. So I go to, this is a true story, I swear to God. I go to take the profile down, but I noticed that somebody had, they used to call it winked at me.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, wait a minute now, So I go on and click on her profile, and it was a nurse from Worcester who was a huge Red Sox fan like me. And she had 4 kids from a previous marriage, didn't care. And I said, all right, let's get together. So she first, we went out to lunch. I had her meet me at the radio station. And I couldn't be happier right now. I've been married. Her name's Maureen.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
her name is Maureen. We just celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary back in October, and we've been together for almost in 2025 will be 19 years together. So yeah, and it's been great. It's been great. So therefore, you go through the pain. Now the next question is going to be: did the spirits in the house cause that to happen? It's a strong possibility.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's a strong possibility because when things start going negative, the negative really amplifies itself. And when that happens, it makes people do things that they normally wouldn't do. But in the long run, it happened. And, I'm a stronger person for it now, mainly because of Maureen. Maureen, she didn't really want to go to the house because that was like her house too back in the day, But I gotta give my wife credit. She's been back. She gets along great with Marion. Marion loves Maureen.
Yeah.
And I believe that Maureen may have delivered her son. I think that's the connection there. If I remember, I can't remember.
Wow.
But there's a
Amazing.
connection there because Maureen's a labor delivery nurse at UMass. And so she's caring, she's loving, she's everything. She's everything to me. She's everything to me. But when spirits do, I mean, look at the Lutzes, in Amityville Horror. I mean, that tore that family apart. There's been a lot of instances where negative energies have torn families apart. In the end, for me, I'm a lot better off. And it may have had something to do with it because, I thought it was out of character and it was, but I guess maybe in the long run, you can look at it 2 ways, the way that her path went was the way she chose it to be. And you know what? You talk about going through the pain and coming out better on the other side for it and a higher sense of yourself for it and stronger for it emotionally and physically, everything. I'm way better off, right now. I'm way better off. The only thing I don't have is the Victorian. I don't live in it because there was that discussion when Maureen and I decided we're going to get married. Well, does we sell the house? Does she sell her house in Worcester? We moved to Gardner into the Victorian. Because that did get brought up. That almost happened. But logically and logistically, it wouldn't have worked. Not with all the kids in school in Worcester and not with her job in Worcester. It just wouldn't have worked logistically. But I drove every day to Worcester from that house for years.
Wow.
To go to the radio station because the radio station in Worcester was in downtown Worcester. It was 38.7 miles from door to door. To the parking garage across the street from the station, and it's tough. And we all know Gardner is a different animal, especially in the wintertime. You get 3 feet of snow in Gardner, you get a dusting down in Worcester because the elevation is so high.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
the way I look at it is in the long run, and actually this is kind of an epiphany just for me being on this podcast today with you guys, is that I never really lost the Victorian either.
Yeah, it's always going to be a connection to you.
I never did.
Always.
And if you go on the Union Street side of the Victorian, that door knocker right there, that's my last name on that door knocker. It says Veau on it.
I have to look at it.
Yeah.
Your mark is there.
We put that door knocker up. So I never really lost the house either, I guess. And I kind of just realized that talking with this,
Yeah.
Right.
Do I have any upcoming events coming at the mansion? We're going to do some more for sure. Again, getting back to where I never really lost it. We're going to do some more. The 2 walkthroughs I did in November, there was 2 tours. We're going to do more of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to put together a little bit of a preview film of some of the old footage that I have from there, and run that thing on loop before we walk through. But the last 2 tours were so successful that we're absolutely going to do a couple of more up going there at the Victorian. Absolutely. We you know what? They were so successful. We might even have to spend, do 3 tours or do a weekend of tours. I need to go back and thank those spirits. I do need to go back and thank those spirits, Pam. You know why? Because they
giving you a sign. It gave you a sign.
They sure did. They sure did. And I just want to be very clear on this. I have no ill will toward my ex. I don't. She chose her path. I'm better off for it. I don't harbor grudges. You know what I mean? I don't harbor grudges. I don't have room for it in my life. There's been a few people that it's taken me longer to forgive in my life, but I always end up by doing that. But she put me on a better path, and again, it goes back to embrace the pain, because if you embrace that pain, and you don't know it when it's happening to you, but if you can embrace the pain, it really helps a lot to get through life, because hey, we're all bombarded by negativity and negative things at one point. I am. Thank you, Pam. You know what? What Rob and Allison Condi have done with that property right now. I almost tear up every time I go in, because I
would love to meet them.
I have never met Rob personally, to be honest with you. I have to make that happen, right? But I have so much respect for them, because they were able to. That's what I wanted to see. That was my dream. I wanted to see the Victorian in that state. It was I loved that era. I loved that property. I really, it's like loving a person. And when you put that sweat equity into it for as many years as you put the sweat equity into it, and then having to leave it behind and not realizing 10 years later that you never really lost it. You never really were away from it. You're always welcome back to it. I do need to thank the spirits. You're right.
Do you feel that sometimes it calls to you?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I'm hoping that some of the spirits can help us get some funding going for this film here too. Do I feel like it calls to me? I think about it all the time. I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't at least think about it like once or twice. Like, what's Marion doing? Or, I wonder what's going on up there. And it goes back to what, Ken Watson said, and he really was very wise when he said that. He goes, it wasn't for I know if it wasn't for us, it'd be like, who knows what shape it would be in, because all the water damage, I'll tell you what, if I had a nickel for everybody that said, oh, what's going to buy that? I was really looking into buying that, I'd be a millionaire by now. Everybody and their brother and cousin and sister were going to buy that place when I moved in, And I'll tell you another weird story is, it was my birthday, Memorial Day weekend, 2000. I mean, 9/11 didn't even happen yet, right? Different world. My buddy Michael and I pull in with a U-Haul at like 1 midnight, whenever it was, and we had we were exhausted, absolutely exhausted. We had to move all this furniture into this house, and I'm like, we're never going to make it. I can't even stay awake. And so we started unloading what we could, and we turned around, and the next thing we knew that all the guys from the South Gardner Hotel came out of the bar and formed a chain and unloaded that U-Haul in 10 minutes. We didn't ask them. I just turned around, and the next thing I see, there's 20 guys moving furniture into the Victorian off the U-Haul. And I was like, oh, you want to know of a haunted place? That's another one right there, the South Gardner Hotel.
Oh.
South Gardner Hotel is very haunted, especially in the rooming stores, the rooming floors above it. Because back then, don't forget, the South Gardner Hotel had the swinging doors and the parking for your horses and the lassos out front. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's how long that's been around. But yeah, it's another part. That whole area is it's really
amazing.
It's amazing. And I definitely want to experience it with you again. Because I myself, since I've been there, and the funny thing is, before I did the Global Ghost Hunt 3 years ago, I read Joni's book, and then the very next day, on to the time that I investigated, I was having dreams of that place every single night, to the point that I actually seen all of them walking down that stairwell and greeting me and saying, "Hey, welcome." Ever since then, it's still like in the back of my mind as well.
Yeah, it could. You know what? That's a memory that just keeps going to be playing. Especially when it comes to dreams, because you're in a different level of consciousness when you're dreaming. Obviously, people don't remember half the dreams that they have or whatever, but you definitely remember that one, and that's how they could be communicating. I can't say outside of that footstep night. That spooked me a little bit because just wasn't really expecting that. I can't ever say I was ever afraid in that house, no matter what was going on. A piano could be playing. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid on anything. I was never afraid or scared or whatever. I'd go from the bedroom to the basement in 2 seconds, not even think twice about it. But it goes back to the respect for Maddie.
Yeah.
That's where that goes back, because I knew after a while that she wasn't going to let anything bad happen. Yeah. I knew that. I really firmly believe that. I mean, I knew it. Now, could I completely be wrong on all of this assumptions? Absolutely. But you know what? I don't think I am, because I never, ever, ever was afraid, not once in that house, to go into any room or like, what was that? What's that behind the curtain or anything like that? And I experienced plenty of paranormal things in that house. And not once was that. I was always seems to be at ease. I was always very much at ease with that.
No, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So
you always hear all the bad stories about places. So it's nice to hear that you actually.
You know why, Laura? Because it's like the newscast. If it bleeds, it leads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The good stories, and this is really a problem with society. I think the good stories should be getting the leads, and the bad stories should be told. But they should be in the back. We concentrate so much on negativity and bad, and oh my God, and
you're right.
I'm glad that's not me that got crushed by that truck, or I'm glad that's not me that got killed in the home invasion, or I'm glad that's not me that OD'd on the fentanyl, or whatever bad situation you could possibly think of. And I think we have this morbid fascination with that type of thing. With the Victorian in me, it was always it's always been a positive thing. It was very privileged there. The house does choose you.
Yeah.
Because other people had looked at the house prior to us looking at the house, and they asked one question. And the question was, what are you going to do with it? Oh, I'm going to bust it up. I'm going to make some apartments, make it a 3-level apartment. And they say, oh, yeah, really? Okay, yeah, thanks. But no thanks.
Shame.
Wow. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to tear this freaking thing down, and I'm going to sell all the wood and all the hardware to it. Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah. Goodbye.
That's crazy.
No, Sarah, this is true, right? And then they would ask us, and this is from the realtor, okay?
Yeah.
Her name was Karen, wonderful woman. What are you going to do with the house? We're going to restore it. Yours. That's how that happened. It's yours.
Yeah.
We're going to restore it. Like when you restore it, right back to what it looked like in 1875. It's yours, because Stemmerman had the final decision on it. And when they say, well, we have a buyer, what are they going to do with it? Oh, they're going to tear it down. Tell them to go fuck themselves. What are they going to do with it? Bust it into apartments? Ditto. What are they going to do with it? they're going to restore it, sell it to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mark, what are your future plans besides the S.K Pierce Mansion filming?
Well, we're working really hard right now on Attack of the Killer Refrigerator 2.
Yep.
You know, it takes that old B horror movie, like the first one was. Again, it never was supposed to leave campus, and look what happened. You know, and then we integrate that one with Attack of the Killer Refrigerator 2. So the first half of the film is like the B horror movie comedy stuff. Second half of the film is all traditional, real demonic horror. With some B horror movie still sprinkled in toward the end. So we're really proud of the screenplay. So we're going to get that going. We've been working on it forever. A lot of people think it's never going to happen because we've been working on it forever and it hasn't happened yet. But we don't look at it that way. Things like this take time. And but because we have, you know, we've already proven before that it is viable in today's marketplace. Because the first one, and you saw it, Susan, you know, not that great. You know what I mean? We worked. It was like
I was like, wait a minute, he's in it.
Yeah,
I thought that was you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it actually got an award for worst video of the year at the 1985 August National.
Oh no!
In Minneapolis, Minnesota. But since we only spent $25 to make it, plus tape stock and our time to edit it, we got a check for $65 and a plaque. So we were we were already ahead of the game with that.
You were already.
If anybody wants to view it, I believe I saw it on Sling, but I think it's on Amazon as well.
Yeah, it's in Screenbox. The other thing is too, you go to mediahousefilms.com if you want to get involved with it. We are forever in Zoom meetings. We have some pretty good help getting this thing going. Stan Livingston, who's an actor, who maybe before some people's times, but he played Chip on My Three Sons, the old TV show from the 60s. So he was a child star. I did a radio interview about the movie and the project, and the guy said, "Oh, I'm going to pass it along to a friend of mine who lives in Hollywood. He's all into this stuff. He produces films." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Stan Livingston." I said, "Name rings a bell." He goes, "Chip from My Three Sons." And I was like, "No, he's not going to like Attack of the Killer Refrigerator. That was a wholesome family show." I said, but then I remember, here's another proverb. Wayne Gretzky once said, "I missed 100% of the shots I never took." And I said, send it to him. And about a week later, Stan called me back and said, what a great project. I love it. What can I do to help? So we're working on getting this thing together. It is one of the most original, if not most unique antagonists in horror movie history. We've had enough of the clowns. I can't do clowns anymore.
Oh God, it's tell you.
I can't. I can't. There's nothing original about it. And I'm happy for the guys who made Terrifier, because they are on Terrifier 3 right now and they're making some bank. Okay, with ours, the Killer Refrigerator starts off as a metal box. I don't want to give anything away, but it goes on to take on a whole new personality, so to speak.
Wow!
So
it's gonna make you fear your refrigerator.
Yeah, it's gonna have a voice. It's gonna have a personality. It's
nice.
Paranormal activity. It's gonna be everything that you've heard on that side of things. So the story is off the charts. It's nice. Really off the charts. When we write screenplays, it's give me a good story. Give me characters we care about. Give me that, and then sprinkle in the horror. We don't have any characters in here. They're going to hide behind the chainsaws, waiting for the killer to come get them with the leather face. There's a huge character arc with our character, the Killer Refrigerator. Huge, like huge. And if you think about it, Michael Myers never uttered a word. He's never changed. His character is the same. Same with Jason from Friday the 13th. His character never changes. It's going to be the same. The shark in Jaws, Bruce, that's what they called it on the set, never change. He's always going to be a great white shark. But in our film, everything changes. And it is really, really a great story. And it's called the contained movie script. And that what I mean by contained, it takes place in one location. Now,
that's pretty cool.
Now, which is for budget reasons. However, in the script, I'll give you a little bit of it. All the levels of the Victorian change. They will change to what is going on
Nice.
within the story. And as the story goes on, the atmosphere changes, the physicality of the space changes.
Does the refrigerator change from a retro to a stainless steel?
No, we do have a stainless steel refrigerator in it, though, Laura. We have another one. The refrigerator changes when it takes on the personality of the last male victim it ate.
Nice.
Okay.
And I won't give any more away from that.
Wow.
You're going to see more. Now, you're going to see more. Let me put it this way. Because I'm not explaining this at 100% of my potential. It's a mix of machines and humans.
Okay.
All right. And that's all I want to say about it, because
that's all I want to say.
It's all going to come out anyway.
I can see where they're going with it. Yeah.
Just bring extra batteries and
there's a character arc. Oh no, the refrigerator has to keep plugging in to charge. That's one of it's Achilles heel. So there's a huge character arc in the refrigerator, unlike any other horror character you have ever seen in your life. And because we have 40 years of the first one, Attack of the Killer Refrigerator, and the notoriety that little $25 like terrible thing that was supposed to be just played on the college TV station has done, tells us that this is inevitable. Yeah. And it was just a matter of, we thought of it when we moved into the Victorian. When I moved into the Victorian, we've been working. We have 5 other screenplays besides this one, and we were thinking about it because we were always writing different things, mainly horror. But we were like, it was just like, can you imagine the killer refrigerator in the mansion? And that's how it all started. And it's been a great ride since. I take screenwriting incredibly seriously. We're learning. The one thing about filmmaking, it's the most collaborative medium that you could possibly ever encounter. There isn't a medium, an art medium, that requires more people, more expertise, and more time than making films, because you need all the crew, you need all the actors, you need the makeup artists, the special effect artists, sound guys, video, all
be
that.
busy
So
there.
Plus,
they're going to be looking down at you saying, "Oh, what's going on here? Let's drain their batteries."
Hey, you know what? I hope we get some. You know what, Susan? I hope we get some good ghost footage, because that'll just give more credence to being able to, get the film more promotion, and mainly where it was shot. And just think of what this will do to the Victorian, because this is a film that's going to be released worldwide.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about advertising, it will never go away. Because if you look at the Conjuring house, I know they're in trouble right now. God. I understand what's been going on. Unfortunately, it's a horrible thing. But because if that house was never in the movie, you wouldn't have now. And there's a good side and a bad side to that too, right? There's a good side where you have your just people that are just being pests to be, it's the Conjuring house, and not treating it probably with the respect that they should be treating it with, because it was in the movie. The most famous version of that is the Amityville Horror, because that house was in a movie. Everybody goes there. It's changed hands like 7 times since the film came out or something, but it's one of the most famous places in the world.
Exactly.
This is what the Victorian, the S.K Pierce Mansion, is already famous. It's already world famous. You throw it in a movie like this one right here, it's going to be it's going to be off the chart. Everybody's going to want to go there. Everybody to see this.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win.
It is a win-win. It's a win-win for the town. It's a win-win for the Contis. It's a win-win for Marion and anybody else who's ever been associated with that place. It's a win-win. for everybody, but especially the town. Because
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
I go back to my theory is like whatever they want, if you're a town official, you make sure they have that because this is what draws people to this town.
Sure.
Nothing else. This is the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that, then you shouldn't be in the position that you're in to begin with. If you are so nearsighted and you cannot see the importance that this property has to the town of South Gardner, because it's literally South Gardner, then I don't know what to tell you. You know, I mean, you know, the place is just it's an amazing, amazing place, and it's a perfect setting for a movie. You know, like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You
That's
know?
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So, Mark, where can everybody find you if they want to look you up?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to talk to people about the film. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll give you the email, our URL. Mike Savino and myself run it. It's Media House Films. We're an LLC, but the website is Media MEDIA. So there's Media House HOUSE. So Media House Films with an S FILMS.com. So MediaHouseFilms.com. And if people want to email me directly, I'd be more than happy to give out my email. It's real easy. It's my first and last name, Mark, M-A-R-K, Veau, V-E-A-U, at iCloud.com. So Mark Veau, M-A-R-K, V-E-A-U, at iCloud, C-L-O-U-D, of course, .com. So Mark Veau at iCloud.com. But MediaHouseFilms.com is our film website. Mark Veau at iCloud.com is my direct email. Goes right to my inbox.
That's awesome. Awesome.
And we'll have to get together. I'm sure this will be archived for
Yep.
posterity.
Actually, your website's actually in there already.
Perfect.
A couple of the mobs was nice enough to put it in there. And I'll definitely make sure that your email is in there as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions at any time. I mean, people, you know, they don't feel like you're intruding. You know, it might take me a day or so to get back to you, but I will get back to every email, especially if you have questions about the Victorian or about the film or how you can get involved with the film. We'd love to talk with you, and you just email me there, and then we'll progress. And you know, if we're talking, I'll even give out the phone my phone number. I don't want to give that out, you know, live, but I mean, you know, you email me, that's my phone number. You want to have a conversation with me about any of the subjects that we touched upon tonight. I'd be more than happy to take the time and talk to you. Absolutely, it would be my pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, it was great, definitely having you on the show.
Yes, it was. Enjoyed every minute of it.
Absolutely. We definitely need to keep in touch.
Oh, we're gonna do that.
Yes.
The investigations for sure. I definitely want to do an investigation. And I can't thank you both enough.
Oh, absolutely.
For having me on. This
absolutely.
I don't think that we take this lightly. Whenever I'm honored to be on podcasts, this one especially is one of the longest form podcasts that we've done. And I really thank you and appreciate everything that you did for me today. I really can't thank you enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a couple minutes?
Yeah, I got a couple minutes.
We're just going to wrap things up here, and then Carl's going to put you backstage, and then we'll get right back to you.
Absolutely.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
It was.
Absolutely.
Very interesting stuff.
Have you seen those questions in the comment for voting on whether or not I should have the hood or not the hood?
Oh, well, did you see? I sent you a message. Stop hiding that pretty face. Everybody wants you to keep your hood back.
I know, but it's part of, you know, it's my character. I have to stay with my character. I know. But that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, wonderful. Because the history, that house has such a rich history. And that's why I asked the question about, you know, with the ghost hunters and all of that.
Yep.
You know, I rather have a more legitimate, you know, group go in and then go over the findings that they have, because, you know, like I said, they have to amp it up because of television.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
I would prefer have a a private team go in there and do their investigations and then match up whatever Mark has experienced.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Mark and I are definitely going to keep in touch. He's actually not too far from me, and Gardner's not too far from me at all. So most likely I'm going to be there. Definitely.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely look forward to that. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So we have a New Year's Eve podcast coming up, which is going to be fun.
Fun or a disaster, one or the other.
I know. We're going to have games, raffles. I'm actually going to probably raffle up a couple of my necklaces with stones that I'll put energy in them before I raffle them up. But we're going to have Horror of Horror. We're going to have Carla on. We're going to have Angelina from Bad to the Bone. We're going to have Diane from Lurking Spirits. We're going to have Christina from Bad to the Bone. We're going to have various. Wow. It's going to be amazing. And of course, Emma from PDX.
So pretty much, a full covenant of women, guys. Look out. Here we come.
At 8 p.m. on the 31st.
So that's going to be great.
So
hopefully
be ready. Be ready. And if anybody has any questions to ask or anything like that, just chime on in.
That'd be great. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
I know. Absolutely. Well, thank you for everybody for tuning in to the last show of the year. God.
Yes.
I can't believe
Hello
it.
to everybody that we missed. And thanks for joining us. And thanks for hanging out.
I know. Almost 2025. Unreal.
We look forward to seeing everybody in the new year.
Yes. So until then, stay spooky and we will see you shortly.
Bye.
Bye.